daughter was born with Sturge-Weber in 1986, and 3 months after she was born, she had eye surgeries at a week, a month, and 3 months old. And after that, I just got kind of pissed off, actually, and started the foundation when she was about 3 months old, and we actually incorporated in September 1987. I had a couple good advisors locally in Denver that helped me reach out to other pediatric neurologists, then dermatologists. And back in those days, you had to do snail mail and long-distance phone calls. And so we funded the organization for about the first 4 years out of our own, pocket. And then we decided we were going to have a conference. And so we had an article in the local paper talking about the syndrome and what we were trying to do. And funny story happened one day. I was down in our basement in my sweatpants, unfinished basement in our sweatpants, and I got a phone call, and this guy said, he goes, I'm Mrs. Ford's assistant, and she would like to talk to you. And I hung up on him. So he calls back and he goes, no, please don't hang up. And so sure enough, it was First Lady Betty Ford's assistant, and they were opening the Beaver Creek Hyatt, and they wanted to honor us for what we were doing. And then they also gave an award to Sarah and Jim Brady, who is the press secretary. So it was kind of a fun entry into the world of fundraising. They gave us our first corpus of funds for our research fund. And it's kind of like a Cinderella moment in a way. But it was good. And so that's how we started, just little by little, parent to parent, that kind of thing. Truly, it was a calling. It was a welling up. I just knew. We were driving to a neurology appointment one day, and no car seats. KK was in my arms, and I just looked down, and I was like, we have to do more than cry and hold hands. And so that's Kirk was driving, and he said, no, we don't. And I said, yes, we do. And that's pretty much how the rest of our life has gone, is somebody tells me no, and I'm going to do it. So we just did. But I just felt like there were other people out there, and your burdens are less when you share them with others, and then you give your strength to somebody when they're emotionally, financially weak. You just share what you can. I was raised that way. That's how my parents were and my grandparents were. So I didn't know any other way to really tackle life. The medical community knew a little bit about Sturge-Weber, more so the neurologists and ophthalmologists. At that point in time, the lasers had really just been invented, and they were using them for other things. And at that time, they weren't doing laser treatments on children under the age of 5. So we flew to Boston 1 week and went out to see the woman who was helping, get the laser going. And she did a little spot on Kaelin's face right here. And then we came back, and then the next week we flew to LA, where they were just getting PET scan research going. So we were able to see that, what level of involvement was there. But again, the PET scan was just new. So it was a great time if you were going to have a child with Sturge-Weber to have it, because the science was beginning to advance. We brought the neurologists together at their annual meeting and got some new blood on board. But interestingly enough, your mother's instinct, you really have to rely on that, because that was the only area on Kaelin's face that is now totally clear. And that's because they did it early. And so now, obviously they'll do lasers, when they're a month old, couple weeks old. And so the remediation is much, much better now. But back then, things were just really starting to emerge. The glaucoma specialists were good. But now we're, going to try banking tissue and things like that so we can get to the genetic end of it. I did know more than some of the medical community and providers did, only because I just educated myself. Every ophthalmology, dermatology, neurology, genetic conference that I went to, I sat in on the lectures that they gave. And I think for me, the advantage was I looked at it translationally. And most providers and clinicians, you know, they got a huge bandwidth in just their specialty that they deal with, and you can't fault them for not having any more time to go learn more things. I think those who were more confident in themselves weren't threatened when I would ask a question about, well, what about this in glaucoma? And it made them kind of think in a different way. And then that's how we evolved into getting the clinical care network centers that we do, because we wanted all of the specialists to get together and talk about their patient with Sturge-Weber, you know. The greatest accomplishment that we've done is we found the gene, and we found what caused it. And that's really, when I started this, that's all. I just wanted to know why. I mean, why? Was it my fault? Was it his fault? Was it my grandparents' fault? And so I think that's the biggest accomplishment, is that we laid the groundwork so that we could get the National Institutes of Health grant that funded the scientists so they could go and find the gene. The other is, again, the laser treatments for the face and you know, the birthmark. I think they've improved dramatically since they first started. For instance, when they first started, they had a little laser spot size that was just like that tiny, and now they have a spot size that's about that big. So you can treat much faster, and it's less traumatic, you know, for the child. So that's impressive. And the other is the pharmaceuticals. They've really been able to identify which pharmaceuticals and anticonvulsants really work the best for our kids. Instead of just an electrical seizure that they have, ours are also driven by the vascular involvement and lack of oxygen to the brain. So they've come up with some new therapies for that too. We actually found out it was nobody's fault. It was what's called a somatic mutation. It just, you know, kind of a fluky thing that occurred. But I think we need more research to determine what caused that gene to activate or inactivate. And so I mean, we'll get there. But you know, it's just like anything. Some people have freckles, some people don't. Well, why did you get freckles? It wasn't your mama's fault. It was just fluky thing that happened. Sturge-Weber, it just bubbles up. And for instance, we've had many parents who have Sturge-Weber that have gone on to have children, and their children don't have Sturge-Weber. So, you know, I think they could probably pass on maybe a birthmark somewhere, but the chance of their child having Sturge-Weber is really rare. Yeah. It's interesting to consider where we could go. I was actually just talking to one of our scientists a little while ago, and we're only held back by money, as is any rare disease or any disease. You know, research goes where money flows, and if we had that, I would hope that we would invest in more gene therapy, looking at the role of inflammation, autoimmune, if there's anything there. I kind of think so, but I'm just a mom. Let's see, where else? I'd kind of like to get into 3D modeling. You know, you can take tissue now and you can regenerate a kidney and then and do it. So if they could, it would be like so sci-fi to be able to take that brain tissue and regenerate that tissue before it absolutely atrophies and dies off. Because right now you've got a small window of opportunity before as it progresses in the brain. So if you could insert like a stop sign almost, like, okay, you're done, everything else is going to stay healthy. That would be amazing. That would be amazing. One of my parents gave me this sign when I moved back to Colorado. It says, the years tell us much that the days never knew. And I think that is so true. And if I could say anything to the young parents that are new to the journey, it would be to protect your marriage, protect your family. They can be all consuming with the medical appointments and the physical therapies and the, but there will come a day when they're all grown up. And raising kids that are normal is hard anyway, but it's even harder. The rate of divorce in disabilities is higher even than in general. So I think it would really be just to be very kind, and to be vulnerable enough to admit you're sorry. You don't know everything. I think there's always one parent that takes the lead, which I don't know, would be me maybe, but takes the lead, and the other one just is there for support. But it's definitely a team effort, and it's harder. It's harder when you're single, so you got to build a support system around you at church or in your community, and give yourself time to get away and just to exhale. Everybody wants to. They keep saying breathe, 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 and it's not that. What you really need is you need to give yourself permission to just exhale through the crisis, and then you're going to inhale. We're all capable of more than we think we are, and you just got to take a leap of faith. And the worst thing that could happen is that you fail, or you don't fulfill what you set out to do. But the main thing is just to be honest and authentic about it, and you tried. I want to be the victor, and we've done really, really well. I'm hoping in the next 5 years we can position the scientists and the families and really get them activated, and then when I turn 70, we'll turn the reins over, and a whole new generation will probably do something different and much better than we ever did. I just know that we were good stewards of the donations that were given to us. I didn't take a salary really for the first 10 years. Not that we didn't need it, but because we did. But I just didn't think it was right. I think all the money had to go to fund the things that we've done. So that's my hope, is the next person that takes over is going to do an even better job. 4 or 5 years ago, we applied for what's called a PCORI grant, Patient-Centered Outcomes Research, and that was another turning point for the foundation. That grant was $250,000 and enabled us to bring the scientists, clinicians, and patients together. And that was the first time in our disease state that they had all come together. And it was exciting because the scientists who were into their world thought this is what the patients wanted. And then when the patients came up and did their piece, the thing that most impacted them was their quality of life. And the main thing that bubbled up was migraines. Migraines kept them from school, kept them from work. The seizures, you could pretty well control those, but interestingly enough, it was migraines. So we've continued with that dynamic, even though the funding's gone. We've continued to bring them together at our international conferences that we have, and also the online summits that we do periodically throughout the year. And it takes a lot of people. I'm not going to say that one word. It takes a lot of people to really make advances and make an impact. So our theme is to unite, and that's what we're doing.